I want to give a shout out to our good friend Brian Krassenstein for this tremendous display. On Twitter, I said, did Jon Stewart commit fraud when he sold his penthouse for $17.5 million? New York listed its market value at 1.8, et cetera, et cetera. You know the argument. Brian Krassenstein argued. He responded, let me explain this to you in simple terms. Oh, this gets good, my friends. Jon Stewart sold his property to someone who wanted to pay $17.5 million for it. I'm going to pause there and just try to explain this to Brian in simple terms. Brian, when you lie about the value of something and trick someone into paying for it, there is a fine line between fraud and not fraud. I am not literally saying Jon Stewart committed fraud. I think he's allowed to value his own property at whatever he wants and sell it. The argument is, tongue in cheek in this regard, that Jon Stewart knew the government assessed the value of his building at 1.8 million and he sold it for 17.5 anyway, therefore artificially inflating the value. You see the point I'm making? It's based on the Democrat logic. He says Donald Trump lied to banks and financial institutions not only about the value of his properties, but about how much they were earning, the size of the properties, the number of units that could be built on the properties in order to deceive them into taking risks they should not have taken and lending him money they would not have lended him. One case is someone selling a property over the state's estimated market value because demand is there, with both parties entering the agreement knowing the terms. We don't know that. Do we know that the buyer knew what the assessed value was? I'm assuming they did. The other is called fraud and was on a massive scale. I got to pause you there. The banks did their own due diligence and argued there was no fraud. Furthermore, none of two even matters because there was no trial. You can argue anything you want about what you claim Trump did, but you have never proven it in a court of law. The judge had there was a summary judgment issued. Trump was declared to have committed fraud without presenting any evidence at trial nor defense. So you don't get to just assert a thing is true unless you prove it in court. And unfortunately for you, your psychotic Engoron judge didn't allow that to happen. So you live in crackpot cult world where you let despots bang a gavel and strip people of their property. But it gets better. You see, I responded to our good friend Brian saying, Brian, let me help you. Because I know it's hard to Google. Jon Stewart argued on his show that paying taxes on a lower assessed value, then claiming a higher market value, is fraud. To which I posted the quote. The Attorney General of New York knew that Trump's property values were inflated because when it came time to pay taxes, Trump undervalued the very same properties. It was all part of a very specific real estate practice on his line, arguing that Trump was called out for fraud because he claimed his properties were worth X, got loans against them, but then when he went to pay taxes, he used a lower assessed value. To which Brian responded, show me where he argued this.
Oh my God.
Okay. I'm appreciative of this, Brian. I do appreciate this because it makes it easy for me to explain to the viewers. I quite literally just read you, dear viewer, a quote from Jon Stewart that Donald Trump properties were inflated because when it came time to pay taxes, he undervalued those properties. Okay. Stewart mocked Trump in the screenshot of the quote that Brian apparently did not or could not read. Hence my point. Brian has no idea what he's talking about, has not followed up on any of this information, and believes that if a judge without a trial bangs a gavel and says, I hereby decree, it is now fact. Sorry, I live in the world of meritocracy and jurisprudence, meaning if a judge wants to accuse Trump of wrongdoing, if a DA wants to, if an attorney general wants to, they have to prove it in court, and they never did. Therefore, Trump is innocent of all charges of wrongdoing, and nothing you said is a proven fact. It's speculation and conjecture where a judge banged a gavel and there was no trial. Sorry, have a nice day. There we go. That's my rant on Trump did nothing wrong.
The other day, Brian tweeted something about, I forget what the tweet was, but it was just about in support of Biden. And I was like, you've supported Biden forever. And he was like, show me where. And I'm like, what? So then me and a bunch of people just inundated him with all these times that he supported Biden's, the left's kind of craziness. And then he didn't say anything back. And I wasn't surprised because.
Yeah, they just don't respond. If I ever say anything to them, they don't even they don't even respond. And I'm just like, fine by me.